Okay, so quite a long time ago, I made this flying car. Now this was pretty cool at the time. It was loads of fun to just mess around in, but now I've realised it wasn't actually that good. See, it can fly okay, but it's not great at flying, and also isn't great at driving. So today, I want to make the perfect car in Scrap Mechanic. So this is going to have to do a bit more than flying, but let's see how it goes. So first we're going to start off with the base. Now this is going to be relatively small, not too small though, since we are going to need to fit quite a lot of stuff in here. Now for now this will just look like a box, but this thing will need to look a little better soon. So this will be how big it is. Now this is going to have a passenger seat and a driver's seat, which the passenger seat is probably never going to be used, but it's there anyway. So this is going to have to look good. So I'm going to make this thing look good before we actually make it drive or do anything, because it's easier to fit stuff around the outside than make it later. So I don't really make that much cards in Scrap Mechanic because they're kind of easy and I can't be bothered to. So, but I'm pretty proud of this actually exterior. So now I'm going to make it so it can actually drive. This is also going to have an extra bearing so the wheels can fold in when we start flying, which will make it look a lot cooler. It also does help a slight bit while flying, but not that much. And now we can drive. Now this thing's pretty fun to just mess around in already. Now this thing drifts quite a bit, which is quite nice since it's pretty light even though it's made out of metal. Metal probably wasn't the best idea, but we're stuck here now. So yeah, now I'm just going to add in some thrusters. Now you are going to see the thrusters from the outside of the car, and they kind of look like an electric stove, but we're just going to have to deal with it because there's nowhere else that we can really fit them. Now this thing's going to have 5 thrusters, 1 forward thruster and 4 upward thrusters. The forward thruster is going to be off center, so it might cause us to turn a bit in mid-air, but it won't matter too much. And now technically we can fly. There's just no control, which makes it kind of boring to fly. I mean, you can spin the wheels, and it does help, kind of, but it doesn't do anything really. So we need to add control. So the first step is going to add a WNS converter. This will basically mean that we can just control it while flying using the WNS or our keyboard, which is going to be pretty useful and pretty easy to fly. Now this uses 3 engines and 3 bearings, which is quite a lot and quite expensive, but it works pretty well, so it's worth it. So yeah, now it's done. We just put the sensors in place, and now as we go forward and backwards, they now trigger their sensors and then stop triggering them, which is pretty useful. And now the wheels fold in as well, which looks pretty cool to be honest. But anyway, now we need to actually add control. So the way this we're going to be able to control this is basically when we press W, it's going to turn off the thrusters in the front, so we pitch forwards, and then it's going to turn off the thrusters in the back. We press S, so we'll pitch backwards. So this is going to use some logic, but it should be pretty simple for now. Now it works. Now all the thrusters on until we press W. I have only added it to 1 thruster, but this thing is pretty cool. Now this thing does work, kind of. So we're going to add in an AMD converter. This will help him roll, since that'll also be pretty important. So yeah, now both the back thrusters should work with roll and pitch. So let's test it out. As you can see, we can now press A and turn one of them off, then press D to turn the other one off, and then W should turn both of them off, I think. And now I added the logic to all thrusters, and now we can pitch, except it's a bit too powerful. Of course, roll is pretty good at the moment, and we can roll pretty precisely, and except the pitch isn't really good. So I made a diagram like this to the car. So the buttons will be my WASD, and the switch will be the thrusters being turned on. So I'm basically gonna just find a way to make it so the pitch is less severe, and the way we're going to do this is make him pulse instead of just turning off, which should make it a lot better. So this is pretty simple and it should work. So when we press our W button, it pulses the ones in front. When we press our S button, it should pulse the ones in the back. So now we just need to add this to the car. And now it should work. And now we can lift off. Now we can pitch forward and pitch backwards. The only problem is the engines with the WNS converter aren't powerful enough or fast enough, so it is a bit weird, but it works. Now we can fly with quite a bit of control. Of course, it is a bit bad when you start spinning, since you can't actually control it that much, and it is a bit of a nightmare to control, but after a lot of practice it works better. So now for the next thing, I want this thing to hover. So the first thing I'm going to do is make it so instead of the flying system going straight into the thrusters, it'll go into some OR gates that go into the thrusters, which means you can control the thrusters with more than one logic gate. So now I'm going to add some sensors. I'm also going to add another set in a minute, because basically this thing doesn't have two forward thrusters, which means in my last hover car I basically turned one off to turn, and then turn the other one off to turn the other way. But that won't work with this. So I'm going to try and make this tilt, so when you press A, it'll basically mean it'll hover low on one side, which should hopefully make us turn. I don't know if it will though, since there's nothing backing it up, but let's just hope. So I made this diagram on the floor again, and now it should work. So they've got the two thrusters. Of course it's only working with one thruster at the moment, but now it should work. I bet basically the first part of this is just making it so all the thrusters pulse when we turn on the switch, which means we'll basically fall down slower when we need to stop hovering, or stop going up. And now the hovering pretty much works. We can also tilt, and it's not that bad. And yeah, you can't really turn, but it does okay. It does flip over, but there's nothing we can really do about that. So yeah, now this thing's almost complete. This thing's quite a lot of fun to just mess around with and drive around. This thing's, yeah, pretty good. So the next thing we add, it's going to have to be a lot smaller than the things we added before. So I want to add spud guns, but I don't want them to be on the outside, because I don't want to be able to see them. So I want them to be on the inside of the car. But the problem is, there's not enough space really. So I've got an idea where to put them. Instead of having them come outside, I'm basically going to make it so they just shoot the headlights off, and just shoot through where the headlights were. Now this is going to be pretty simple, except we do have to move some stuff, but it should be pretty easy. So first we have to move some engines, but that wasn't too bad. But now we have to move some logic gates. This shouldn't be too bad since there wasn't too much stuff connected to them. But the problem is, I kind of removed the seat by accident, and the car started to run away because I didn't have my lift in my actual hotbar. And I tried to replace the seat, but just couldn't. It kind of fell off the car. So now I just chased after it because it ran into a tree. So yeah, now I added the spud guns. Of course, the headlights can't really be headlights since it just wouldn't work. So they kind of look like headlights, and it still doesn't look too bad. Now there's one big problem is that the wheels were acting really glitchy and weird. I didn't know why. I did think it was that there's sensors right behind them, which was making them a bit glitchy. Then I realised I just hadn't hooked up the steering from when I had broken seat, which was a bit weird. So I went the last 20 minutes without steering. But now it works fine. I also added this piston and a block, which basically just flips us back over, which is pretty useful for when we flip over. Of course, it doesn't do it all the way, but we can just flip ourselves back over. So this thing's basically done now. Spud guns work, and basically everything works. Of course, the flying isn't great, and neither is the hovering. That's kind of what you get when you combine two things together. So yeah, this thing's basically done. Now this thing's pretty cool. It was quite lots of fun to make, and it was actually quite challenging to fit everything inside the car. It's filled with logic, which is pretty cool when you flip it over. Now, is this thing better than my flying car? Not really. Flying car was like one of the best creations I ever made. I'll never forget about it. Now, this is kind of more controllable than the flying car, but also, flying car was just a lot cooler at the time. Now, this thing is pretty good. It's pretty controllable, and it probably is a lot better than the flying car, but still. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and the blueprint's in the description if you want to, well, play with it. And anyway, bye!